All right. Hello, fellow time travelers. My name is James, and I am the Community and Education Outreach Specialist here for the Keweenaw Time Traveler team. So in anticipation for upcoming launch of our new Explore app, we're hosting a series of lunchtime chats with some of our fellow KET team members here. During the series, we'll be talking about some of the great work our team has been doing behind the scenes to develop some of the exciting new things that are going to be a part of the new release that you guys will be able to experience shortly. Today, I'm excited to be talking with Dr. Dan Trepal about some of our census data. So hi, Dan, how you doing?
I'm great. Happy to be here, James.
Well, it's great to have you with us today. Would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself and your role with the team?
Yeah, so I've been a member of the Time Traveler team for about 7 years now. I'm an industrial archaeologist, which means I study the industrial and post-industrial past and present using a combination of different evidence, stuff that's gathered from historical records, material artifacts, community memory, and physical landscapes. So, studying industrial landscapes like the Copper Country is really something that I'm interested in. Right now with the Keweenaw Time Traveler team, a lot of my work has been focusing on developing the historical spatial data sets that make up the digital environment that we call the Keweenaw Time Traveler. So when you see stuff on the screen, a lot of my work is focusing on creating those data sets that are sort of back in the back end.
Great. Well, thanks, Dan. So speaking of those data sets, what do we need to know about the census in particular, and why is it such an important part of the data we get to share on the Explore app?
So the census, is a really important part of this project. And way back in the 18th century, the US Constitution has provisions put in it for conducting a decennial census, which is a detailed count of the population of the United States once every 10 years. And the first one was held back in 1790, and it's continued every 10 years through the most recent census in 2020. The census records a lot of information, including people's names, address, age, occupation, birthplace, birth year, and lots of other important information. So it's a very detailed record set. It really represents the most complete and detailed records we have to show who lived in the Copper Country, for example, during the 19th and 20th centuries.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. So when we gather our census data, does it come directly from the federal government, or where do we get it?
So most of the original census records are held in federal government archives, either in paper form or in microfilm copies. But the census data we're actually using in the Keweenaw Time Traveler project is drawn from what's called the Integrated Public Use Microdata Series, or IPMS. And this is a big digital database of historical census data that was created over the last 25 years or so and managed by a research team at the University of Minnesota. This was a really big effort over many years to create a digital version of the census. And this IPMS data, the census data contained in the IPMS, has been transcribed from original copies of original documents on microfilm, and currently covers the censuses from 1790 all the way through 2010. And they're continually updating that to contain the latest information as it comes in.
Wow, that's amazing. So can anyone access this data from IPMS? Is it available to everybody?
The data in IPMS is, a lot of it is publicly available. That's an important part of what IPMS was developed for. But, as you might have sort of already thought about, a record set that contains lots of detailed personal information is subject to some restrictions. So a portion of the personal information contained within IPMS is actually called restricted census information, and is available only to people with research projects that are relevant to using that type of information, and it can't be shared in its original full form with the public.
Awesome. So I've been working with the data the last couple of years since I've arrived on the, I've worked with the team here, and I've noticed something a little strange. We've got census data every 10 years, all the way up until 1940, except we're missing one of those 10-year sections. Why is that?
Well, as I said, the census actually was collected in the form of paper documents, and those documents were then brought back and tabulated, and then after the census was conducted each census year, that those forms were actually stored in archives. And that essentially was the census record set. Now, in 1921, there was a fire in a building in Washington, D.C. that contained some of the census records, and a portion of the original records from the 1890 census were destroyed in that fire. And many of the surviving damaged records were later discarded because in those days, we didn't realize quite how valuable some of these historic records would be going forward. They were seen as old documents that were retained for various purposes, but sometimes were gotten rid of, and these were damaged. And actually that incident helped bring about the establishment of a national archives that's devoted to sort of better preserving record sets like that in the future. So it was a major loss of very important data of a record of the United States right on the verge of industrialization. But some good did come out of it in terms of how we store records today.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. So you've been working with this data way longer than I have. Can you share some other interesting things you've discovered about our history through the work that you've been doing?
Well, there's lots of interesting little stories that you find in the census because the data is so detailed. But in a general sense, because the census attempted to record the entire population of the United States, it was our best effort to do that for every 10 years. It presents us with a rare opportunity to sort of populate the past with detailed glimpses of our own ancestors or people who lived in our community in the past. So, we can see from the census that the story of the Copper Country, for example, is actually made up of thousands of different stories of people who lived here, each with something unique to contribute to our broader understanding of the place itself. And that makes it a really rare and valuable resource for the kind of stuff we're doing.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Dan, for joining us. Fellow time travelers, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about all the behind the scenes work we're doing here with our time traveler team. To keep up to date on all the going ons here, you can follow us at keweenawhistory.com, follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. That's it from us now, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks, everybody.